Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sports Talk with JWock, and boy do we have some juicy content to talk about today. First up, we're going to be talking about some possible overreactions from the NFL season based off of Week 1. Then we'll go into possibly the best game of the year already that took place in Week 1, and then we'll finish off with some quarterback debuts, so make sure to stay tuned right after I cue the intro. So as you know, Week 1 of the NFL regular season has ended, and by the time you're watching this, the Thursday night game between the Commanders and the Packers will already be over for Week 2. So this is coming out a little late, which I might be trying to push my episodes further up the week, so you're not watching it on Saturday. It might be like Wednesday, just so you guys can get this content before the next week of the NFL, since we're going to be doing a lot of NFL content now. But let's talk about some overreactions between two teams. One of these overreactions is going to be based off of something that may not be a good overreaction, and then the other one might be a good overreaction, depending on what team you like. So let's first start off with a bad overreaction where it's like, this may be something that this team could be in trouble, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. And if, as a Broncos fan, if I have the chance to potentially say that the Chiefs are in trouble, that makes me happy, because it's time for the Chiefs to be dethroned from the AFC West. They've won the last 9 years in the AFC West. They need to be dethroned. Even if it's the Chargers instead of the Broncos, that would be great. The Raiders can stay at the bottom for all I care. No offense to you Raiders fans. You're our rivals, right? But anyways, the Chiefs have been dominating the AFC West for the past 9 years. Since the Broncos won the Super Bowl in 2015, no other team has overcome them in the AFC West. And I think this could be the year. And that is going to be my overreaction or hot take. I think either the Broncos or the Chargers will take over the AFC West this season. And let me explain before any Chiefs fans come after me and just start yelling at me, right? So the Chiefs still have 5 games remaining without Rashee Rice, which, if you don't know who Rashee Rice is, he's basically their wide receiver 1. He is a player where the Chiefs don't have the greatest options for weapons for Patrick Mahomes to throw to. Rashee Rice is a very solid weapon, and losing him is going to be a huge loss for this Chiefs offense. Granted, they still have players like Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, who's now potentially not even going to play in this upcoming game because of an injury. I think they still have Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm not 100% mistaken. They have Pacheco and all that. Decent offensive line. But losing Rashee Rice really hurts. They also have Hollywood Brown. I forgot about him. But basically, let me just name the games that the Chiefs have to play without Rashee Rice. They have to play the Eagles on Sunday. Then they have to go to New York to play the Giants. Then they have to play at home against the Ravens. And then they have to go to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. And then they come back home and then play the Detroit Lions. In my opinion, I see potentially 3 more losses in these next, 5 games. The Eagles, I think they'll lose this game. And if you check out my predictions on Instagram for Week 2 in the NFL, I actually picked the Eagles winning this game. I think they'll beat the Giants. The Giants just don't look good. I sure hope they start Jackson Dart soon, and I might be making a YouTube short on that soon. I think they could lose to the Ravens, even though they're at home. The Ravens looked really good in Week 1, which we will talk about them in the next segment. But yeah, I think they could definitely lose to the Ravens. They play the Jaguars in Jacksonville. The Jaguars are an interesting team. They're a team that I think could be surprisingly good. I talked about the Bears last week in my last episode, talking about how they could be a surprising team. Well, if we're talking about an AFC team, the Jaguars could definitely be a team that could surprise a lot of people, but I do think the Chiefs will beat them. And then they go back home against the Lions. That's going to be a tough game. The Lions got it kind of handed to them against the Packers, but I still think the Lions are going to be a really good team. And with Aiden Hutchinson as your pass rusher, I'm a big Aiden Hutchinson fan. So, come on. This could be really bad for the Chiefs. And then let's just look at their schedule after with Rashee Rice back from his suspension. They play the Raiders, Commanders, both at home. One of those could be a loss. I think they could lose to the Commanders for sure. Then they go to Buffalo and then to Denver. Both of those games very well could be losses. And as a Broncos fan, the Broncos are very close to beating the Chiefs. They could have swept the Chiefs last year if it weren't for Alex Forsyth falling over every single time on a field goal, right? So that's that. Then they go play the Colts at home. They go to Dallas. Then they come back home against the Texans and the Chargers. They go to Tennessee to play the Titans. They go back home to play the Broncos on Christmas Day. And then they go to the Raiders to finish off their season. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to be a bad team. So any Chiefs fan that's watching this, please don't think that I'm actually saying the Chiefs are going to be bad this year. But what I'm saying is this. The Chiefs have a tough schedule to finish this season, even though the season's just started. They have a lot of really tough games down the stretch. And when you have teams like the Denver Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers kind of rising up these last couple of years, especially since Harbaugh became the coach for the Chargers and Sean Payton became the coach for the Broncos, it seems that this is the biggest competition the Chiefs have ever had in this 9-year span of them winning the AFC West. And I think they will be dethroned. Personally, I think the Chargers will win. I know in months back I made early predictions about the NFL standings. I think the Chargers will win this division. Could the Broncos be second? I don't know. I still think the Chiefs might get second. I think all three of those teams will make the playoffs. But it's very interesting, and I think the Chiefs could be in trouble, and this could be the year that they get dethroned. And that might not even be an overreaction. But anyways, let's get into our second overreaction. The other reaction that I was kind of I think this could be seriously true, is that the Packers might be the second favorite team to make the Super Bowl coming out of the NFC behind the Philadelphia Eagles, because the Eagles still look incredible, by the way. The Packers added Micah Parsons. I know they traded a pretty big haul, but in my opinion, for the price of Micah Parsons and what he can do for your pass rush and your defense and just in general, they're going to be a very good defense just because of Micah Parsons, believe it or not. And they have some other playmakers alongside him. Their offense also is pretty solid. Jordan Love, I would say, is borderline, if not top 10 quarterback in the NFL. They have a pretty solid offense. They have real good depth at wide receiver. They have a good tight end. They have Josh Jacobs at the running back. They have a solid offensive line. This Packers team looks good, and this is their chance to truly try to make the Super Bowl. I really do believe that. Other than the Eagles and the Lions and then maybe the Buccaneers, I think the Packers have a great chance at getting to the Super Bowl this year, and this is their chance. So I think that is my other overreaction. I know I didn't talk about the Packers much, but it's kind of a refresher knowing that, hey, my favorite team, the Denver Broncos, could have a chance to take over the Chiefs or just any other team than the Chiefs winning the AFC West. So that's why I talked about them more. But anyways, we're going to get into our next segment where I'm going to be talking about the potential game of the year between the Bills and the Ravens. And we're on to our next segment where we're going to be talking about the potential game of the year already based off of week 1, where we saw on Sunday night the Ravens traveled to Buffalo to play against the Buffalo Bills, two absolute juggernauts, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL in general. These two teams are going to be threats to be potential Super Bowl contenders, and this could be the potential matchup in the AFC Championship. So let's talk about this game. We're not going to be talking about this too long because if you haven't watched it, go watch the highlights. It was a super fun game. The Bills ended up winning this game 41-40. So you guys are going to be looking at that score going, okay, Either these offenses were really dominant or these defenses were just trash. I think it was more just the offenses. In my opinion, both of these offenses are really good. Their defenses are also very good. I think it was just like you got two really great quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson battling it out. It was kind of going the Ravens' way for almost the whole entire game. Going into the fourth quarter even, they were leading 40-25. So the Ravens ended up getting shut out in the fourth quarter, so they didn't score a single point. They were up 15 at the beginning of the fourth. I think there was like 11 minutes and like 42 seconds when they had that lead officially. And I think the big thing that swung the momentum in this game was Derrick Henry, by the way, had an unbelievable game up to this point. Fumbles the football, the Bills recover it, they go down and they score a touchdown. And that changed the whole perspective of the game. The Ravens' momentum just completely died, and the Bills just took over that game and ended up winning. The Bills ended up having the final drive of the game where they were down, I think it was 38-40. The Ravens were still leading. There was a couple seconds left. The Bills got into perfect field goal range. Josh Allen ended up kneeling it right in the middle where this would be perfect for Matt Prater, who, by the way, just was barely on the Bills because he got picked up from the Cardinals, I believe. The Bills ended up signing him. Matt Prater, old Broncos legend, goes on the field with a couple seconds left. No timeouts, by the way. Kicks the field goal. Ball game. Bills win 41-40. Ravens fans are upset because they blew a big lead. But in my opinion, if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm not too worried. This team is going to be really good. Hopefully they can finish and actually produce going into the playoffs because that's what they haven't been doing lately. But overall, this game was so fun to watch. It just was back and forth chaos. It was a battle between two really good championship contender teams, and I would consider this the game of the year, and I don't know if we will get a game better than this, but that's going to be just my thoughts on that game. Let me know what you guys think down below, and we're going to get on to the final segment where we're going to be talking about two quarterbacks that had their debut in Week 1. Before we get into this final topic, I have to ask a quick question. Have you liked and subscribed? If not, go down below, like and subscribe. It's completely free, and you could always unsubscribe at any point. Do not worry, it will not hurt my feelings, but it also makes me very happy if you guys subscribe and spread the word about my podcast because it shows me that you guys truly care and you want to hear more about this. But anyways, let's get into the final topic where we saw in Week 1 two rookie quarterbacks make their debut. Cam Ward is a true rookie, and then J.J. McCarthy going into his second year, but he never played a single snap in the regular season or the playoffs last year due to his injury, which I believe was an ACL tear. So first up, let's talk about Cam Ward because he was the one that played first. He played against the Broncos. I'm going to know a lot more about how Cam Ward played because I watched that game. Mostly. I did watch a little bit of the Monday night game, but this game I'm a little more fresh on. Let's just talk about Cam Ward's stats real quick. Cam Ward he went 12 for 28 in throwing. He threw 112 yards. He had 0 touchdowns. And the big problem was he was sacked 6 times on Sunday versus a tenacious Broncos defense. I mean, Cam Ward had 0 time to even process. And when he did, he tried to scramble out and then there was a defender there. Like, I felt bad for him. Like, seriously, because Cam Ward was just getting swarmed by the defense and then penalties killed them. I mean, we saw in the second half, the Titans offense as a whole had like a net gain total of like -2 yards in the whole second half. So they didn't even make any positive plays in the second half, technically. But Cam Ward, in my opinion, despite being sacked 6 times, despite not throwing the ball very well, like efficiently, he showed a ton of promise. And I'll explain that in a second. He threw the ball in spaces where it's like, wow, he looks like a really good quarterback, and you could tell that's going to carry on for years to come. The thing that I think he needs to fix is it seems like he puts a little too much heat on the ball when he throws it to where wide receivers and tight ends and running backs and all that, it's going to be a lot harder for them to catch the football, especially if they're on the run. When that ball is just being zipped right into their hands or their chest, it's a lot harder to catch that. He needs to slow it down just a tad. He doesn't have to slow it down completely, but it does seem like he puts a little too much heat on the ball to when a wide receiver has to catch it, it's going to be a lot harder. Hence why we also saw a lot of the wide receivers, aka Calvin Ridley, drop a lot of footballs. Does that have to do all with Cam Ward? No, that's also on Calvin Ridley. But Cam Ward definitely does need to slow it down. And that goes into my next part where I do think he's very promising. I also think his offensive line and wide receivers / tight ends and stuff really didn't give him much help. This coaching staff looked horrible in Tennessee, by the way. They were struggling, it felt like, all game. But Cam Ward was throwing some beautiful passes sometimes. A little too much heat, but it was right on the money to Ridley wide open when the Broncos were playing zone. And he would just drop it. In crucial moments too. I mean, that has to be frustrating, especially as a rookie quarterback. You don't want to just yell at your players, and you shouldn't do that anyways. But you could tell he was getting frustrated. I mean, not necessarily by his body language, but you could tell, anybody would get frustrated off of that. But that just shows how good of a leader Cam Ward's going to be, because even though they were dropping the football, he still had the confidence that, hey, I'm going to go into this next play, I'm going to throw to you again, and I'm going to assume that you're going to catch this football, which Calvin Ridley didn't. But I think this more shows that Cam Ward needs better weapons rather than Cam Ward needs to be a better quarterback, if that makes sense. But my prediction is I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the NFL. I think he could be a top 10 quarterback in 2 to 3 years, by far. But let's get on to the other quarterback that I talked about last week, JJ McCarthy. He made his NFL debut. I know he played in the preseason. I don't count that as a debut in my opinion. It only counts when it's the regular season. JJ McCarthy went 13 for 20. He threw for 143 yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He did throw an interception, which actually was a pick 6. I believe that was in the third quarter, at the start. He also had 2 carries for 25 yards, and he got 1 rushing touchdown. JJ McCarthy started really slow, especially in the first half. The second half, he goes out, throws a pick 6. It's looking bad. It's okay, JJ McCarthy, what are we doing here? But then he finished the game. He goes into the fourth quarter, and he throws for 2 passing touchdowns, finishes with a rushing touchdown. The Vikings end up getting the win against the Bears in the Windy City. And like I say, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. This is exactly how Bo Nix was last year. There were games where it's oh man, he looks rough. He's either slow or he's just not making the right reads. He's either turning the ball over or close to turning the ball over. And then he finishes strong. JJ McCarthy did the same. I think JJ McCarthy showed us some really good potential, but he also showed us something that we all knew was going to happen going into last year's draft. He's a very raw quarterback. He's a quarterback that's going to take time throughout the NFL. He's not going to just be this finished product right away. It's going to take him time, but hey, an ugly win is better than an ugly loss. That's all I got to say. I would take a win any day. So JJ McCarthy definitely showed some promise. I think he's also going to be a pretty solid quarterback in the NFL. He's just got a couple things to clean up. But overall, that is going to be the end of this episode for podcast number 68 of Sports Talk with JWock. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. I appreciate all of you. If I ask you of one thing, this may be a tough task. You don't have to do it. But if you could just share this podcast with people you know and tell them to share it as well, just so I could get my name out there. I'm really trying to advertise more with this podcast. I'm really putting a lot more effort into it. Hence the background. I changed it significantly due to the fact that I just wanted it to be a little better to watch. I'm trying to get more guests on. I'm trying to get my name out there. So just please share this podcast if you would like. But anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can check out all my platforms on all the social media platforms I am on down below in the link or in the description below. But anyways, I hope you all have an amazing week. God bless.